I gave her everything. My house, my savings, my trust. I thought she loved me. I was so wrong. And now I'm starting over at 62 with nothing. The beach was almost empty when I sat down that evening. Just me, a cold singa, and the sound of waves hitting the sand. I'd been in Phuket for 2 years by then, retired at 60, divorced at 58. Free, I kept telling myself. But freedom feels a lot like loneliness when you're sitting alone watching the sunset for the 100th time. I took a sip of my beer and stared at the horizon. The sky was turning pink and orange, bleeding into the ocean like watercolor paint. Beautiful, empty, just like my life had become. My ex-wife used to say I never appreciated sunsets. She was wrong. I just never had time to watch them with her. Now I had all the time in the world and no one to share it with. That's when I heard her voice. "You look sad." I turned around. She was standing there with a tray in her hands, wearing a simple black shirt and jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her smile was soft, genuine, or at least that's what I thought. "I'm not sad," I said, "just thinking." She tilted her head, studying me like she was trying to figure something out. Thinking is dangerous for a man alone on the beach. Too much thinking makes the heart heavy. I laughed. I hadn't laughed in weeks, maybe months. She set the tray down on the table next to mine and sat across from me without asking. Bold, confident, but not in an aggressive way. "I'm Rattiya," she said. "I work here. You come here a lot. Always alone. Always with the same beer. Always sitting in the same spot." I felt a little embarrassed. "Yeah, I guess I'm predictable." "Not predictable," she said. "Lonely. There's a difference." I nodded slowly. She wasn't wrong. "I'm Weston," I said. "From Hawaii originally. Been here about 2 years now." She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black in the fading light. "Why did you come to Thailand? Most American men your age, they come here for the beaches, the cheap beer, the women. Which one are you?" I smiled. "Mostly the cheap beer." She laughed. It was a real laugh, not forced or polite. "You're funny." "I like that. But really, why are you here?" I took another sip of my beer, trying to decide how honest to be. I needed to get away. My marriage ended. My kids grew up and moved on with their lives. I spent 40 years working, saving, planning for retirement. Then I retired and realized I had nothing to retire to. So I sold my house, bought a plane ticket, and ended up here. Rettia's eyes softened. "That's sad. You seem like a good man. Good men shouldn't be alone." I didn't know what to say to that. She kept looking at me, really looking at me, like she actually cared. It had been so long since someone looked at me that way. Not with pity, not with judgment, just with interest. "Do you have family here?" I asked, trying to shift the conversation away from my loneliness. "In Bangkok," she said. "My mother, my younger brother. I send them money every month. That's why I work here. The tips are good. Tourists are generous." "What about your father?" She looked down. "He died when I was 12. Heart attack. After that, everything became hard. My mother had to work 2 jobs. I had to drop out of school to help. That's life. You know? We do what we have to do." I felt something twist in my chest. She was so young, 25, maybe, and she'd already been through so much. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be sorry," she said, looking back up at me with that smile. "I'm okay now. I'm strong, and I'm good at making people happy. That's my job." We talked for another hour. She told me about Bangkok, about the temples she used to visit with her father, about her brother who wanted to be an engineer. She asked me about Hawaii, about the ocean, about what it was like to live on an island. She didn't ask me for anything. She didn't flirt too hard. She just listened, really listened. When she finally stood up to leave, the beach was almost completely dark. The bar was closing. "I should go," she said, "but maybe we can talk again sometime?" She pulled out her phone. "Can I have your number? I don't usually do this. but I like talking to you. You're different from the other men who come here. I gave it to her. My heart was beating faster than it should have been. She typed it into her phone and smiled. I'll text you tomorrow. Weston from Hawaii. I'd like that, I said. She walked away, her ponytail swinging. I watched her go, finishing the last of my beer. That night, lying in my villa, I stared at the ceiling and thought about her smile, the way she said my name, the way she looked at me. I told myself it was nothing, just a conversation, just a lonely old man reading too much into a kind gesture from a young woman. But deep down, I knew I was already hoping for more. I was already imagining what it would be like to not be alone anymore. She texted me the next morning. I was having coffee on my balcony when my phone buzzed. Good morning, Weston. I hope you slept well. I stared at the message for a full minute. I couldn't remember the last time anyone sent me a good morning text. Not my ex-wife. Not in the last 5 years of our marriage. Not my kids. They called maybe once a month, always rushed, always distracted. No one. I texted back, trying not to sound too eager. Good morning. I did. How about you? 3 dots appeared immediately. She was typing. I'm good. Do you want to meet later? I know a place. Not for tourists. Real Thai food. The kind that makes your mouth burn, but you can't stop eating. I smiled. That sounds perfect. What time? 2 o'clock? I'll send you the address. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I spent the next 4 hours trying not to think about it, trying not to get my hopes up. But I showered. I put on a clean shirt. I even trimmed my beard. When I looked in the mirror, I saw an old man trying to look young again. Pathetic, maybe, but hopeful. We met that afternoon at a small restaurant tucked away in a side street I'd never noticed before. The kind of place with plastic chairs and handwritten menus. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, waving at me with that same warm smile. You found it, she said. I wasn't sure you would. Most Farang get lost in these streets. I followed your directions, I said, sitting down across from her, and I asked 3 people for help. She laughed. See, you're learning. That's good. Thai people, like when foreigners ask for help, it makes us feel useful. The waiter came over. Rattiya spoke to him in rapid Thai, ordering for both of us. I liked that. I liked not having to decide, not having to struggle with the menu. She ordered som tam, grilled fish, sticky rice, and something else I didn't catch. The food came fast. The som tam was so spicy my eyes watered, but it was incredible. She watched me struggle through the first bite and smiled. Too spicy? She asked. No, I lied, reaching for my water. It's perfect. She laughed again. You're lying, but I like that you're trying. Most foreign men, they complain. They say Thai food is too spicy, too strange. They want hamburgers and pizza. I didn't move halfway around the world for hamburgers, I said. Why did you move here, really? She asked, leaning forward. Yesterday you said you needed to get away. But from what? What are you running from? I put my fork down. The question was too direct, too honest. But something about her made me want to answer. I'm not running, I said. I'm just tired. Tired of feeling invisible. My wife, my ex-wife, she stopped seeing me years before we got divorced. I'd come home from work and she'd barely look up from her phone. My kids, they moved to different cities, started their own lives. I became this background character in my own family. When I retired, I thought things would get better. But they got worse. I was just this old man with nothing to do and no one who needed him. So I left. I sold everything and I came here. Retia reached across the table and touched my hand. Her fingers were small and warm. That's so sad, Weston. You don't deserve that. You're a good man. I can see it. You deserve to be happy. I looked at her. Her eyes were so soft, so kind. You don't even know me, I said. I know enough, she said. You're kind. You're honest. You listen. You don't talk down to me like other foreign men do. You treat me like a person. That means something. I felt something crack open inside me, something I'd kept closed for years. We stayed in that restaurant for 3 hours. We talked about everything. She told me about growing up poor in Bangkok. about sleeping on the floor because they couldn't afford beds, about her mother working in a factory 16 hours a day. I told her about Hawaii, about my job managing a hotel, about my marriage that died slowly like a plant no one remembered to water. When we finally left, the sun was starting to set. She took my hand as we walked. "Can I see you again?" I asked. "Tomorrow?" she said. "And the day after that? And the day after that?" We started seeing each other almost every day after that. She showed me parts of Phuket I'd never seen. Temples hidden in the jungle, markets where old women sold flowers and fruit, beaches where locals went, not tourists. She held my hand when we walked. She laughed at my terrible Thai pronunciation when I tried to order food. She texted me every morning and every night. "Good morning, my Weston. Sleep well. Dream of me." I did. I dreamed of her every night. One evening, we were sitting on a bench overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever feel lonely, Weston?" she asked quietly. "All the time," I admitted. "Even now?" "Not now," I said. "Not when I'm with you." She looked up at me. Her face was so close to mine. "You don't have to be lonely anymore. I'm here." I kissed her. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly we were kissing, and it felt like the first time in years that I'd done something right, something real. That night, she came back to my villa. We didn't talk much. We just held each other. Her body was small and warm against mine, and for the first time since my divorce, I didn't feel like a broken man. I felt alive. The next morning, she was still there. She made me coffee. She smiled at me from across the kitchen, wearing one of my shirts. "You deserve to be happy, Weston," she said, "and I'm going to make you happy." I believed her. God help me. I believed every word. I believed that at 62, I'd finally found something real. 3 months went by like a dream. We were together almost every night. She started keeping clothes at my place, a toothbrush in the bathroom, shampoo that smelled like coconut, her flip-flops by the door, little pieces of her life blending into mine. I started imagining a future. Maybe we could travel together. Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia. Maybe I could help her open a small business, a little shop or restaurant. Maybe this was real. Maybe at 62, I'd finally found what I'd been looking for my whole life. Then one night, everything changed. We were sitting on the couch watching a Thai drama she liked. I didn't understand most of it, but I liked watching her reactions. The way she'd gasp at plot twists or laugh at jokes I didn't get. But that night, she wasn't paying attention. She was staring at her phone, her face tight with worry. Her jaw was clenched. She kept scrolling and scrolling. "What's wrong?" I asked. She shook her head quickly. "Nothing. It's okay." "Rattiya, come on. Tell me what's going on." She put the phone down and looked at me. Her eyes were wet. "It's my mother. She's sick. She's been having chest pains. She needs to see a doctor, a specialist, but it's expensive. Really expensive. I've been trying to save money, but it's not enough. I don't know what to do." I felt something shift in my chest, a mix of concern and something else, something I couldn't quite name. "How much do you need?" I asked. "No, Weston, no," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I can't ask you for money. That's not why I'm telling you this. That's not why I'm with you. I don't want you to think I'm that kind of girl. I know you're not," I said, "but I want to help. How much does she need?" She looked down at her hands. "The specialist costs $2,000, but it's too much. I'll figure something out. Maybe I can pick up extra shifts. Maybe I can borrow from my cousin." "Retia," I said, reaching for my phone. "Let me help." "No, I can't let you do that." "Why not? I have the money. What's the point of having it if I can't use it to help someone I care about?" She looked up at me. Tears were running down her cheeks now. "You really care about me?" "Of course I do," I said. "Now give me your account number. Weston, I'll pay you back. I promise, as soon as I can." "You don't have to," I said. Just take care of your mother. I transferred the money that night. $2,000. She watched me do it, her hand over her mouth. When the transaction went through, she threw her arms around me. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. You're saving her life. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me, I said, holding her. That's what you do for people you love. The word hung in the air. Love. I'd said it. She pulled back and looked at me. You love me? Yes, I said. I think I do. She kissed me. Hard, desperate. I love you too, she said. I felt like a hero, like I'd finally done something that mattered. A week went by. She was extra sweet, extra attentive. She cooked my favorite meals. She massaged my shoulders when I was tense. She told me I was the best man she'd ever met. Then one morning, she came to me again. This time she looked even more upset. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying all night. What now? I asked, already pulling her into my arms. What happened? It's my brother, she said, her voice breaking. His school fees are due. If he doesn't pay by Friday, they'll kick him out. He's so close to graduating, Weston. Just one more year. If he gets kicked out now, he'll never finish. He'll never get a good job. His whole future will be ruined. How much? I asked. The question came out automatically. 1,500. But Weston, I can't keep asking you for money. This isn't fair to you. I feel terrible. Don't feel terrible, I said. I want to help. But it's too much. You've already done so much for me, for my family. It's not too much, I said. Let me do this. I transferred the money the next day. $1,500, she cried again. She thanked me again. She told me I was changing her family's life. But this time, something in my gut twisted. A small voice in the back of my head whispered, "This is too much, too fast. This is how it starts." I ignored it. I pushed it down. I told myself she wasn't like the other girls I'd heard about, the ones who used old foreign men for money. She was different. She loved me. She needed me. And I needed to be needed. That night, lying in bed, she curled up against me. "I'm so lucky to have you," she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," I said. But even as I said it, that small voice in my head got a little louder. A month later, she showed up at my villa in the middle of the afternoon. I was reading on the balcony when I heard the gate open. She walked in carrying a small bag, her face streaked with tears. She looked destroyed. "What happened?" I asked, jumping up and pulling her inside. "Tell me what's wrong." "My landlord," she said, her voice shaking. "He's kicking me out. He says he needs the apartment for his daughter who's moving back from Australia. I have 2 weeks to find a new place. I don't know where to go. Everything in Phuket is so expensive now." I didn't hesitate. The words came out before I even thought about them. "Move in here." She looked at me, her eyes wide. "Weston, I can't." "Why not? You're here almost every night anyway. It makes sense. But what will people think? What will your friends say?" "I don't care what anyone thinks," I said. "I want you here. With me." She bit her lip, looking around the villa like she was considering it. "Are you sure? This is a big step." "I'm sure," I said. "I've never been more sure of anything." She moved in 3 days later. 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. That was everything she owned. I helped her unpack. We put her clothes in half of my closet, her shampoo in the shower, her toothbrush next to mine. For a few weeks, it was perfect, better than perfect. We cooked together. She taught me how to make pad thai. I taught her how to make pancakes the way my mother used to make them. We watched movies. We fell asleep holding each other. She started calling me her man when she introduced me to her friends at the bar. "This is Weston. He's my man," she'd say, and I'd feel this surge of pride, like I belonged to someone again, like I mattered. But then small things started to change. Little things I noticed but tried to ignore. She was on her phone more, a lot more, texting, scrolling, sometimes laughing at something on the screen. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd say, "Just friends. Just girls from work. Don't worry. But I did worry. I couldn't help it. One night, I woke up at 3 in the morning. She wasn't in bed. I found her in the living room, sitting on the couch in the dark, staring at her phone. The blue light illuminated her face. "Rattiya?" I said. She jumped, nearly dropping the phone. "Oh, I didn't mean to wake you." "Who are you talking to at 3 in the morning?" "My cousin," she said quickly. "She's having problems with her boyfriend. Bad problems. She needed someone to talk to. I was just trying to help her." "Oh," I said. "Is she okay?" "She will be," Retia said. "Come back to bed. It's late." I did, but I lay awake for another hour, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. Something felt off. I couldn't explain it, just a feeling in my gut. The next day, my friend Danny called me from Hawaii. We FaceTimed for an hour. He asked how I was doing, how Thailand was treating me. "It's good," I said. "Really good, actually." "Yeah? You seem different. Happier." "I am," I said. "I met someone." Danny's eyebrows went up. "Oh yeah? Tell me about her." I told him about Retia, how we met, how she made me feel alive again, how she'd moved in with me. Danny listened, nodding, but I could see something in his eyes, concern maybe, or doubt. "You sure about this, man?" he said when I finished. "You've only known her a few months." "I know," I said, "but it feels right. She's not like what you're thinking." "I'm not thinking anything," Danny said. "I just want you to be careful. I've heard stories, about guys our age going over there and getting taken advantage of. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but just be careful." "She's not like that," I said, feeling defensive. "She's different." "Okay," Danny said. "I believe you. But if you ever need to talk, I'm here." "I know," I said. "Thanks." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time thinking about what he'd said. Stories. He'd heard stories. So had I. Every expat I'd met in Thailand had stories. Bar girls who drained men's bank accounts. Women who had multiple foreign boyfriends sending them money. Men who built houses for women who disappeared as soon as the construction was done. But Retia wasn't like that. She couldn't be. She loved me. I could see it in her eyes. Couldn't I? That night, I held her a little tighter. I told myself Danny was wrong. I told myself I knew what I was doing. I told myself that at 62, I was smart enough not to be fooled. But deep down, the fear was starting to grow. The doubt was creeping in. And I hated myself for feeling it. Because if I started doubting her, if I started questioning everything, then what did I have left? Nothing. I'd have nothing. So I pushed it down. I buried it. I chose to believe. Because believing felt better than being alone. 2 weeks later, Rattiya came to me with an idea. We were eating dinner when she brought it up. Pad krapow with fried eggs. She'd made it just the way I liked it. "Weston, I need to talk to you about something," she said, putting down her fork. "Okay," I said, looking up at her. There was something in her voice. Something serious. She took a breath. "My cousin, the one I've been talking to, she wants to open a cafe in Bangkok. A small place. Coffee, pastries, Thai desserts. She has the location, but she needs an investor. She asked if I wanted to be a partner." "Okay," I said slowly. "And? If we invest, we could own part of it. She says it's a smart business. Lots of tourists. Lots of locals. The area is really good. We could make good money. Real money." I frowned. "How much are we talking?" $50,000. I nearly choked on my rice. 50,000? "I know it sounds like a lot," she said quickly, reaching across the table to take my hand. "But think about it. This could be our future. We could have income. Steady income. We could build something together. Something real." I put my fork down. My hands were shaking. "Rattiya, that's a lot of money. That's most of my savings." "I know, but she's family. I trust her. And I trust you. This could be good for us. For our future." She looked at me with those big, hopeful eyes. I wanted to say yes, I wanted to believe this was real. But $50,000, that was most of what I had left after selling my house and moving here. Can I think about it? I asked. Her face fell. The light in her eyes dimmed. Of course, she said quietly. Take your time. But I could hear the disappointment in her voice. For the next 2 days, she barely talked to me. She was distant, cold. She stayed on her side of the bed. She didn't text me good morning. She didn't smile when she saw me. She answered my questions with one-word responses. I panicked. I couldn't lose her. Not over money. Not after everything. On the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore. She was sitting on the balcony, staring at her phone. Rattiya, I said, can we talk? She looked up at me. Her face was blank. Sure, I've been thinking about the cafe. And? I'll do it, I said. I'll invest. Her face lit up. The warmth came back instantly. She jumped up and threw her arms around me. Really? Are you sure? Yes, I said. Let's do it. Let's invest in the cafe. Thank you, Weston. Thank you. We're going to build something beautiful together. I promise. This is going to change everything for us. I wired the money the next day. $50,000. Gone. She was there when I did it. She watched the screen as I confirmed the transfer. When it went through, she kissed me. She held me. She told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her. We're partners now, she said, in business and in life. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel good about it. But that night, lying in bed, I felt something in my chest. Something heavy. Something wrong. $50,000. What if it failed? What if this was a mistake? What if Danny was right? I looked at Retia sleeping next to me. She looked so peaceful. So beautiful. I told myself I was doing the right thing. I told myself this was an investment in our future. I ignored that voice in my head that kept getting louder and louder. 3 weeks later, she came to me again. This time, her face was serious. We were sitting on the balcony. The sun was setting. It should have been beautiful, but I felt a knot in my stomach before she even spoke. The cafe needs more money, she said. I looked at her. What? My cousin says the renovations are more expensive than she thought. The equipment, the permits, the licenses, everything. If we don't put in more money, the whole thing will fall apart. Everything we've already invested will be lost. How much more? I asked, even though I didn't want to know. Another 100,000. I stared at her. My mouth went dry. Retia, I don't have that. I don't have anywhere close to that. She started crying. Real tears this time. Or maybe they always were. I couldn't tell anymore. If you really loved me, you'd find a way. I felt anger rise in my chest. Real anger. For the first time since I'd met her. I've given you everything. $50,000. I've helped your mother, your brother, your whole family. What more do you want from me? She went silent. Her face changed. The tears stopped. Her eyes turned cold. Maybe I was wrong about you, she said quietly. Maybe you don't love me as much as you said. She stood up and walked into the bedroom. She closed the door. I heard the lock click. I stood there on the balcony, shaking. My heart was pounding. My hands were clenched into fists. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The fear was back, stronger this time, but so was the desperation. The thought of losing her, the thought of being alone again. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. The next morning, she still wouldn't talk to me. She made coffee for herself, but not for me. She sat at the table, scrolling through her phone, ignoring me completely. Retia, I said, please, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, she said without looking up. I thought we were building a future together, but I guess I was wrong. I made the call that afternoon. My hands were shaking as I dialed. Mike, I said when my real estate agent picked up. I need to sell the house. There was a long pause. Weston, what house? You sold your house 2 years ago. Not that one, I said. The rental property. The one I kept in Kona. Weston, Mike said slowly. That's your retirement backup. That's your safety net. Are you sure about this? I'm sure, I lied. How fast can you sell it? Maybe 3 weeks if we price it right. But Weston, seriously, think about this. What's going on? Are you in trouble? I'm fine, I said. I just need the money. It's an investment opportunity. What kind of investment? Mike asked. I could hear the concern in his voice. Just trust me, I said. Can you do it or not? I can do it, he said, but I really think you should reconsider. That property is worth $200,000. Once it's gone, it's gone. I know, I said. Just sell it. 3 weeks later, the house sold. I wired Rattiya $200,000. When I told her, she smiled. That warm smile I'd fallen in love with. She hugged me. She said, I knew you'd come through. I knew you loved me. But when I looked into her eyes, I didn't see love anymore. I saw relief. I saw satisfaction. I saw victory. I saw something cold and calculating that made my blood run cold. That night, I sat alone on the balcony. My house was gone. My rental property was gone. My savings were almost gone. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, gone. And for the first time, I admitted to myself what I'd been too afraid to admit before. I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. After that, things changed. Or maybe they didn't change. Maybe I just finally started seeing what was always there. She started going out at night, 2, 3 times a week. I need to check on the cafe, she'd say. My cousin needs help with the setup. I need to be there. Can I come with you? I asked once. She looked at me like I'd suggested something crazy. No, it's boring business stuff. You wouldn't enjoy it. Just stay here and relax. I didn't believe her, but I didn't push. I was too afraid of the answer. One night, I woke up at 2 in the morning. She wasn't in bed. I went to the living room. She wasn't there either. Her purse was gone. Her phone was gone. She'd left without telling me. I sat on the couch and waited. She came home at 5 in the morning. I was still sitting there. Where were you? I asked. She froze when she saw me. At the cafe, I told you. Until 5 in the morning? We were working late. There's a lot to do. You couldn't text me? You couldn't let me know? She sighed. Weston, I don't need to report to you every minute of every day. I'm not your prisoner. She walked into the bedroom and closed the door. I sat there as the sun came up, wondering who I was sharing a bed with. A week later, she left her phone at home. She'd gone to the market, said she'd be back in an hour. I saw it sitting on the kitchen counter. I told myself not to look. I told myself to trust her. I told myself I was being paranoid, but I couldn't stop myself. I unlocked it. I knew her password. She'd given it to me months ago, or maybe I'd watched her type it in. I couldn't remember. The first thing I saw was a message thread with someone named Crit. My hand started shaking as I opened it. Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Miss you so much. This old man is driving me crazy. When is he going to be gone? I'm tired of sharing you. Soon. Just a little bit longer. I'm almost done here. I felt my stomach drop. I felt like I was going to throw up. I scrolled up. Weeks of messages. Months, maybe. Flirty, intimate, sexual. Plans to meet. Pictures I couldn't unsee. Videos I wish I'd never seen. They weren't just dating. They were in love. They were planning a future together. My money was funding their future. I sat there holding her phone, shaking. My vision was blurry. I couldn't breathe. The front door opened. She walked in carrying bags from the market. She saw me. She saw the phone in my hands. She froze. Weston, I held up the phone. My voice came out flat. Dead. Who's Crit? She didn't answer. She just stood there. Who is he? Retia. She sighed. Not a gasp. Not panic. Just a tired sigh, like I was inconveniencing her. You weren't supposed to see that. That's all you have to say, I asked. You weren't supposed to see that? She set the bags down and sat across from me. Her face was calm, too calm, like we were discussing what to have for dinner. You think I was going to stay with you forever? She said. You're 62, Weston. I'm 25. I have a life to live. I felt tears in my eyes. I didn't want to cry in front of her, but I couldn't stop them. What about us? What about everything we built? She laughed, a short, cold laugh that cut through me like a knife. Built? We didn't build anything. You gave me money? That's all. What about the cafe? I asked. What about my investment? She shrugged. The cafe? That was never real. There is no cafe. But you already knew that, didn't you? Deep down? I did. Somewhere deep down, I did. I just didn't want to admit it. So all of it was a lie? I asked. Everything? She leaned back. Not all of it. I liked you at first. You were sweet, kind, different from the other old men. But then I realized you had money, and I needed money. For me, for Crit, for our future. So I made a choice. You used me, I said. She nodded. Yes, I used you. And you don't even feel bad about it? No, she said simply. You let me. You gave me everything I asked for. You never said no. You wanted to believe so badly that someone like me could love someone like you. That's not my fault. That's yours. She was right. God help me, she was right. I let her. I gave her everything. I ignored every red flag. I chose to believe the lie because the truth was too painful. She stood up. I'm leaving tonight. Crit is picking me up. You can keep the villa. I don't need it anymore. We're moving to Bangkok together. She walked into the bedroom and started packing. I just sat there. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't beg her to stay. I just watched her pack her 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. Everything she owned. Everything I'd helped her buy. She walked to the door. She turned back to look at me one last time. For what it's worth, she said, I did like you. In the beginning. But that doesn't pay the bills. The door closed. I heard a motorcycle pull up outside. I heard her laugh. I heard them drive away. And I was alone again. Completely alone. With nothing. The villa felt empty after she left. Too big. Too quiet. I couldn't sleep in the bed anymore. It smelled like her. Her coconut shampoo. Her perfume. The sheets we'd shared. So I slept on the couch. Or tried to sleep. Mostly I just lay there staring at the ceiling. I thought about calling my kids, telling them what happened. But what would I say? Hey, remember that house you were supposed to inherit someday? Yeah. I gave it to a 25-year-old Thai girl who was sleeping with someone else the whole time. I couldn't do it. The shame was too much. I thought about going back to Hawaii. But there was nothing there. No house. No property. No life. I'd sold it all. I'd burned every bridge to stay here. With her. For her. So I stayed. I moved out of the villa. I couldn't afford it anymore. I found a cheap apartment in town. 1 room, a bed, a kitchen, a bathroom. That was all I needed. That was all I had left. I started teaching English online. $5 an hour. Sometimes 6 if I was lucky. It wasn't much, but it was something. I taught kids in China how to pronounce words. I helped adults in Japan practice conversations. I graded essays for students in Vietnam. $5 at a time. I tried to rebuild what I'd lost. Some nights, I'd sit on my small balcony and think about her. I'd wonder if any of it was real. The laughs, the kisses, the mornings we spent together, the way she'd hold my hand and call me her man. I'd wonder if she ever cared, even a little bit. But I knew the answer, and somehow I was okay with it. Or at least, I was learning to be. I lost everything. My house, my rental property, my savings, my pride, my dignity. Everything I'd worked 40 years to build, gone in less than a year. But I was still here, still breathing, still trying. One evening, I went back to the beach where we first met. I sat in the same spot, ordered the same beer, watched the same sunset. A young couple walked by, holding hands. They looked happy, excited, in love. I smiled. I didn't feel jealous. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. I finished my beer and stood up. Tomorrow, I'd teach another class. I'd make another $5. I'd cook another meal for one. I'd keep going, because that's all I could do. I walked back to my apartment. The streets were quiet. The air was warm. A motorbike passed by with a young couple laughing. And for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness, not contentment, just peace. I'd been a fool. I'd ignored every warning sign. I'd chosen to believe a beautiful lie instead of an ugly truth. I'd given everything to someone who saw me as nothing more than a wallet. But I survived it. I was still here. At 62, I was starting over with nothing. No house, no savings, no partner, no plan. Just me and a laptop and $5 an hour. Some people might call that failure. Maybe it is. But I call it a second chance. A chance to rebuild. A chance to be smarter. A chance to learn that love isn't about giving everything away. That night, lying in my small bed in my small apartment, I thought about what Danny had said. Be careful. I should have listened, but maybe I needed to learn this lesson the hard way. Maybe some lessons can only be learned through pain. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow was another day, another chance, another $5. I lost everything, but I'm still here, and that has to mean something.